Good afternoon. I am here to say thank you to the Minneapolis Police Department on behalf of a very grateful city. Please know that for this department and for this unit, this result has been the culmination of an extraordinary amount of work and perseverance dating back to at least 2013. To survivors, we hope that this brings some form of closure to everything you've been through. And please know that it was your courage that will now make it so that so many more don't need to go through what you did. This is also a clear and salient reminder that while this pandemic is occurring, we still have extraordinary first responders that are doing their job day in and day out. From our police officers to the investigators to 911 dispatchers and firefighters to our health workers, we have a team of extraordinary professionals that are all rallying around a common cause of public safety and public health here in this city. So Minneapolis is a bit safer because of the work done by this department and this unit, and I'm so thankful, and I know the entire city is as well. So thank you, and I would now like to turn it over to our Chief Arredondo, who has led this effort. Chief.
Thank you, Mayor Fry. This afternoon, I am pleased to announce the arrest last Friday morning of a suspect in Anoka County over at a residence who, through great investigative work, we believe at this moment in time is responsible for multiple criminal sexual assaults in our city. As Mayor Fry mentioned too, I want to take a moment to say to the victims, survivors, and witnesses, I thank you for and acknowledge your courage and your strength. And I will tell you that all of our law enforcement partners involved in this arrest did not forget you. They were determined to make sure that you were not forgotten in this, and we were fortunate to come to a result which once again will hold this individual accountable for his actions. I am pleased within the Minneapolis Police Department to have Deputy Chief Eric Fors, who under his bureau really coordinated this work. And it is through his focus, through his competency, and more importantly, through his empathy, that the team of law enforcement personnel working on this were able to get the result that they did. And so he has been involved in numerous other high-profile situations and arrests. And so I'd like to, at this time, to bring up Deputy Chief Eric Fors.
Thank you, Chief. I would like to start out again by echoing what Chief Arredondo said and extend our sympathy to the victims of these sexual assaults, and also to let them know that these incidents weighed heavy on us as an agency. And there were a multitude of investigators within the unit and within other jurisdictions that would not rest until we found this individual. A lot of detectives and officers put their heart and soul into this, and I'm very honored and privileged to have such talented people working for me. If you recall, in March, we held a press conference to announce that there was a offender, a male who was attacking women in sexual assaults and attempted sexual assaults, primarily in southeast Minneapolis, in the Marcy Holmes area. We issued sketches and a description and a brief synopsis of these events, and we asked the public for their assistance. I want to say that we received a multitude of tips, and I want to thank the public for reaching out to us and providing us with this information. Our detectives diligently followed up on every tip that was provided, and it was very heartening to see how enthusiastically the public reached out to us with information. As a result of coordinating this investigation, we worked with a large partnership of agencies, most primarily the U of M PD, with which we established a task force to look into this series of events, and we assigned resources that worked full-time on this suspect in this series of incidents, and really did a fantastic job in terms of coordinating and developing information. We also worked with a multitude of other agencies to include the BCA and FBI. Through all their hard work, we did a continuous evaluation of leads in the search for potential suspects. And through really good, solid detective work, we developed a lead and a suspect that through further investigation, we were able to develop probable cause to place this person under arrest. That occurred on Friday. Our violent crimes apprehension team located this male and arrested him. And as a result of evidence collected in our interview, we booked this person in Hennepin County Jail for probable cause burglary and probable cause criminal sexual conduct. I want to thank, again, our partnership with the University of Minnesota Police and also with the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, which was instrumental in helping us analyze the evidence that we collected. I also want to especially thank the detectives that worked on this case, specifically Sergeant Christine Patino, Sergeant Danielle DeRose, and Sergeant Matt Wente, who worked on this endlessly and really, through their professional dedication, saw this case through to what we believe is a successful conclusion. I know we have a lot of work to do, but I will say that I am confident that we have arrested the individual who is responsible for the series of attacks in Southeast Minneapolis. With that, I would like to turn it over to Lieutenant Darcy Horn, who oversees our sex crimes unit.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. Good afternoon. After being appointed to the Sex Crimes Unit in September of 2019, I met with the investigators on these cases to be caught up to speed. It was immediately apparent that their extreme dedication to these cases and their victim-centered approach in their investigations. These were not cases that were referenced by case numbers or addresses or a number on a list. They were always referenced by the victim's first and last name, keeping the victims in the forefront, using that as a model of our investigations. So we're here today to thank the many people who have helped us along the way, but we recognize above all the victim survivors, their strength and their courage. We thank them for their patience and for the faith that they put in us. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Matt Clark, Chief at the University of Minnesota. This arrest was a very important arrest for our campus community at the U of M. A community of 80,000 students, faculty, and staff who experienced a lot of emotion over these attacks. And I also want to recognize the victims, some of them being U of M students, who were also traumatized by the attacks of this assailant. I want to thank Chief Rondo, Deputy Chief Fors, Lieutenant Horn, and the members of the MPD for their great work in investigating this case. And I also want to take this time to recognize the other agencies involved in bringing this to a successful conclusion. Specifically, the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, BCA, Investigator Jess Lapp from the UMPD, Anoka County Sheriff's Office, Tri-County Forensic Lab, Coon Rapids Police Department, Metro Transit Police Department and Crime Lab, Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, and the FBI. Thank you.
Being that these cases are not yet charged out, there will be very limited information we'll be able to discuss, reference charges, or reference the actual case investigations, but if you have questions, we'll take those now.
I don't know who would answer this, but I think that Mayor Fry said these date back to 2013. What was it that was missing? I mean, what didn't you have that you now have that allowed for an arrest, allowed you to identify this individual?
DC Force.
Again, that's going to be difficult to answer to the level of detail that you would like, because these cases are still considered open and not charged. And as the complaints are issued, and I fully expect there to be multiple complaints issued in the coming days and weeks in regards to the suspect, a lot of those details will come out. I will say that we had collected evidence in a series of incidents that through analysis led us to believe and with certainty that it was the same individual committing these acts, and that until Friday, when we were able to obtain further evidence and have it analyzed, that led us to believe with certainty that we had the right individual. It required us to have to find the person, and that required or took a lot of time and effort to find someone that I will say until Friday was not someone that was in the forefront. It required us to sift through a lot of police records, tips, everything that would come in, and look to see if a person that we'd start looking at, if there is anything that would lead us to find other indications or evidence that started to make sense, it started to build the puzzles. And with this individual that once we started looking at this person and through, again, detailed and cooperative information, more and more things started to come into place that led us to believe that we were on the right track with him.
When did you start looking at this individual?
Last week.
This question comes from Jay Coles at KSTP. He wants to know if the suspect is connected to any other sexual assaults in other jurisdictions outside of Minneapolis.
I will say that the answer is yes, but I'm not going to specifically name what jurisdictions those are, because they have active investigations going on.
I understand that there's about 9 victims that he's been linked to. Can you confirm that that's the type of number we're talking about?
I'm going to confirm, as we did in our last press conference, that it's multiple, and that I will leave it at that, because we are also, now that we have further evidence obtained, going to be looking to see if there's more that we can find.
And all of those, of the multitude, are within the Marcy Holmes Dinkytown area?
Not all of them, but the ones that we are looking at are, obviously, the multiple ones are within the city of Minneapolis. Primarily, the incidents did occur in the Marcy Holmes and Dinkytown area.
Mostly there?
Mostly,
But
yes.
some outside of Minneapolis?
Yes, some outside of Minneapolis and some outside of that area.
So he was arrested in Anoka County. Is that where he was living? So an Anoka County man?
We arrested him at a residence in Anoka County.
Okay, is that where, should we say Anoka County man?
I believe that would be
Okay.
fair.
Did he travel to Minneapolis then to commit these sexual assaults, or was he living in the area at the time?
You know, we're still looking into this individual. So, and we're also talking about a scope of years. So it's difficult to answer that with certainty, because that could change over the course of different periods of time. And so our investigation is ongoing, and obviously we'd be looking into that.
Were there any DNA tests used?
I'm not going to comment on the specifics of the evidence that we've examined.
That was my question, was I know you have this very major effort underway to
Mhm.
test the kits at the BCA lab, and I'm wondering what the connections between that stepped-up effort and then the breaks in this case. The new developments in this case. Is there a link? Is that testing
Cur-
ordeal?
And
is
I will say that obviously with every case, we're going to examine whatever evidence that we have. DNA obviously is being one of those. But I will say that this did not come through as a result of the kit backlog.
This question comes from Jeff Wagner, WCCO. Police said at a press conference earlier this year that the man has been doing these crimes crimes for years? How many years are we talking, and can they give us an estimate of how many sexual assault crimes he's connected to? I think you already answered this question, but maybe repeat yourself.
Again, I'm not going to get into the exact number of cases that we're looking at, because they're still open investigations. I will say that we are looking at several, and I believe that the earliest case that we have in Minneapolis is 2015.
So is that, because I think Mayor Price said 2013. So
There
did
are
he say
there
2013 or 2015?
there are other cases that are being looked at outside of Minneapolis.
Okay, that go back to 2013.
That's correct.
Okay. Jeff Wagner also asks, have any of the victims had a chance to see the arrested suspect in a lineup photo to identify him? So did any of the victims identify him in a lineup?
Again, I'm not going to get into the specifics of the individual investigations. I know.
This individual, has he ever been arrested before? Not convicted or charged, has he ever been arrested before in a crime sex case? His background?
Not to my knowledge, no. We don't have any indications that that is the case.
So this is the first crime sex
That
situation that he's been
as far as I'm aware, yes.
Does he work someplace? Just generically as a job?
Again, I'm sorry, but I don't have that level of detail as to this individual currently.
Did he work alone, or are you looking at other suspects connected to these?
I would say, based upon everything that we've seen so far, I would believe that he was working alone.
Did the tips that you received after the March press conference directly play a role here in identifying this guy? How helpful were they?
Well, first of all the tips are helpful. There were a multitude of people that, when you start looking, at first glance, we would be very hopeful and think, hey, this person looks really promising, and then they would be eliminated through one level of once we started looking at certain things that could eliminate them, and they would be eliminated. I'm not going to specifically say where the information came from that led us to identify this person, but it did not come from the tips. However, the tips were extraordinarily helpful in general. And I don't want to underplay the fact that we are so grateful that we did receive these tips. I know that we diligently looked at all of these, and obviously the public was very much concerned and engaged when it came to this.
We have time for one more question.
Okay, another one from Jeff. I think that you've already covered this, so maybe
Okay.
it counts as a half question, John. Because this comes from Jeff Wagner. Don't shoot the messenger again.
Okay.
Had he been arrested for another crime and police connected the dots, or were officers able to use the suspect descriptions to identify him and arrest him in the Mary Holmes area? But you already said he wasn't arrested in the Mary Holmes area, so I think you already answered this.
That's a half a question.
Yeah, okay, so Jennifer can ask another question if she wants.
It's only half a question now.
I'll have a list of about 30 questions.
I know.
I guess, I believe the suspect was booked on burglary and crime sex, so did this develop after police were called to a burglary, and then you're like, oh, I think this guy's connected to these other things, or can you just tell us a little bit more about how you found him on Friday?
Well, I will say how we developed information that came from evidence analyzed from a different case, from another case. And when we looked at that individual case and developed the evidence, and it led us to this individual, and we started looking at that individual as a potential suspect in these cases. That was done because we had individuals, and this particular information came out of our Strategic Intelligence Center. Officer Heidi Eisenbeiss, who worked there, was doing a fantastic job amongst many other detectives, and looking through just piles of old cases and incidents in the areas that had been experiencing these attacks, and looking for anything that we could identify or link to that it might be someone that even looks like our suspect, and then working it backwards from there. And so that we took that information And we got this individual's name through, again, through our analysis of evidence. And then once you start running it through the filters, does it look like it could be the suspect? Does it match the physical description? And then we start working and working and working and adding up more things. And everything started looking very promising in that regard. And our detectives do what they do, and they get more information and more evidence. And as I said, we developed enough that we were able to, within, I'd say, a few days of tireless work, to be able to go place him under arrest and book him as the person responsible for these attacks.
How does this case in number of victims compare to prior serial rapists that MPD has caught? Is this one of the largest, most prolific?
That's a difficult one to answer. I mean, obviously, these type of circumstances are not common. That we generally don't see a person who's, this active over the period of time that often. And that's really what makes it so challenging, and something that I know from myself, Lieutenant Horn, the investigators involved. We spent a lot of time. We thought about this constantly. If an attack occurred, it really weighed on us. We know that if we don't catch this person, they're just going to do it again, and they're going to keep doing it until we catch them. And so I think these type of cases are special and unique in that way, that for us and for our concern, as Chief Clark pointed out, the young women who are attending the University of Minnesota, who they deserve to be free of that fear and having this person amongst them. And it was something that we dedicated ourselves to finding this guy. We were not going to stop until we found him.